community, welcome back to the video. Here's the guy, Chris. So I'm actually going to be sharing this list. This is a deck that I was going to play for some of the regionals that are coming up. We ended up not going with it for Tennessee. If you guys have already seen the cover video, if you guys haven't, I would strongly advise to go and watch that. That's obviously the deck that I took down there. But we did have some thoughts about playing Bulma down there. So I did want to share the list because it's updated. Definitely updated since I last played it. But since we have the new cards that have come out, I wanted to kind of go over the slight changes that we made, as well as what this deck could potentially look like if you do play it or run into it in one of your online tournaments or your in-person events. So Bulma is a very, very good control leader that bases around putting blockers on the board that are Saiyans or Earthlings, or both, I guess, that are either red or yellow. This is a mono red deck primarily, so you're not going to see any yellow charges. Active main, you draw a card, and you awaken at 4 life, you restand 2. On this side, you draw 2 as your activate main. So you can draw a ton of cards and not actually give your opponent any advantage by giving them cards. So this is actually it's a very good control deck. People call this deck boring. I play Hatch, so I don't find these type of decks boring. I find this very fun. So this is a very cool deck. So the leader there, I didn't spend too much time on the leader because it's pretty old. It just draws cards. So we have the 1-drop package. So we have two of separate of each of these searchers. There's a specific reason why we run this guy, but the Go10 searches top 5 for any 4-drop or less Earthling, or a 3-cost Unison, which we do play in the deck. So this searches out your Unison. It actually searches out 3 or less. Yeah, searches out 3 or less. So this gets out most of the cards in your deck. Goku is another searcher. We added this because this searches out top 4 Saiyans, and there's like 2 Saiyans technically in the deck that actually this can hit. But I like this better than I was running the 1-drop peel off. Searches top 5 for an Earthling, which has a ton of targets. But I felt like having this was just better because there's times where I wanted to search out my 4-drops, and I couldn't find them. So we have 2 of the Goku, 2 of the Go10. And basically, and just remember that anything that is an Earthling card or a red Saiyan, they all have blocker when they're on the board. So I'm not going to go over that too much. We have 4 Mai and 2 Peel Off. So this is your... generally, decks would side this in against blue matchups, but in this deck, we actually just play them. So this is a 1-drop barrier that has blocker. Draws as a card, and then it's anti-blue if they decide to use D-Magic to restand an energy. And then Peel Off, again, is an Earthling, draws you a card, and then puts the continuous effect of restanding energy on your opponent's turn. If either player restands energy on their turn, they have to warp 5 cards. If it's a battle card or a extra card effect. So again, you just play it because it's an Earthling, and it's a blocker, and it's a cantrip, and that's kind of what you want in this deck. You just want to be able to search out, basically just draw tons of cards and put up tons of defense. Move this light a little bit. It's a little... I don't know if this light's actually getting in my way or not. It's hard to tell. Alright. That. 2 more 1-drops. These are the Legends Personified. This is another cantrip that draws a card. And then activate main. Bond 3. It becomes a 25k until the end of your opponent's turn. It honestly in testing doesn't come up too much, but it is a very good card to have. Again, it's an Earthling. And it just does give you a very cheap attacker if you do need it, or you can just keep it on board for a 25k blocker. Then we have the original super combo loop, not any of that green Gohan shit. So Raditz and Videl, bottom deck 1, draw 2. Videl, you bottom deck a I don't remember if it's an yeah. So it's a Saiyan and or Earthling. You bottom deck a red or yellow Saiyan or Earthling, and you add back a red or yellow Saiyan to your hand. So you can play Videl, you can bottom deck something from your drop area, and then you add this back to your hand. And you just continuously get back your super combos. Now this you have to pay an energy for. There's ways of playing it out for free, but being able to just cycle back this card as well, because this card also cycles itself. So you can actually use this. You can use this to bottom deck another version of Videl if it's in your drop area. Then you get this back, and then we do have ways of playing this from the drop area, which is pretty cool as well. So some of the big pieces, we have 2 Gohan and 4 of the Broly Champ. This is kind of what gives the deck a good like mid-range, like just 1-drop spam attacks. So this is a 25k crit. You play for 1, and then it gives one of the 2 following effects. You either kill something 15k or less on board, which it's not original power. So if you neg something and then you play this on board, and you can snipe 15ks. Or you can give your non-servant or non-overlord leader overlord. So it seems like they're going to print a red overlord leader here pretty soon. That's probably why they did this. But this, you can give your leader overlord, you swing 25k crit. Whatever happens, you then bottom deck this card to draw a card. So it's a 25k crit. Damage is probably going through if they don't negate it. And then you get to get rid of this card to draw another card. Very powerful. Also is a Saiyan. So technically you can give this, keep it in active mode if you want to make it blocker. And you have Gohan. Now I was originally running 3, but I'll just put the 3rd one in here, I guess. One of the boys has my my other winner stamp, so I didn't want to put this one here. But we ran 3 Gohans. It gets reduced by Z cost on cards in play or the amount of Z energy. This deck doesn't build a ton of Z energy until later. So this card's normally not 1 energy, but you're gonna pay 2 for it, maybe even. It's still very good. It's a 20k blocker double strike that comes down, and the auto window will neg something by 20k. Guys, if you guys have seen some of the Bulma videos, there's a way of like looping this and the Videl counterplay that every Bulma deck plays, where you can basically snipe secret rares for 1 energy. It's very, very strong. But yeah, this is why we run the Gohan. One of the reasons why we run the Gohan or the Goku Searcher is so we can search out this card. It's not just for this card. There's another card in the side deck as well, and also just for future cards. There are some pretty decent 4-drops, but this is just another searcher that you can get. We have the baby package. This is what you play. Is your main this is kind of like your turn, your awakened turn. Is you want to slam this guy down to be able to restand 2 energy, and then this guy just, it does so much. So you the baby Unison will draw you a card, remove something on board, and it's a 20k, which means you can swing into something else probably and remove that. Got a little bit of built-in defense. If it has a marker removed, you can remove a card underneath this instead. So it's got a little bit of built-in defense. It does a 10k on your opponent's turn, so it's a little bit easy to crack. And we have the Videl, Spirit Boost, play it, neg 2 things by 20k. Again, you can, if you time it correctly, you can Gohan in window 1 and then Videl in window 2, and you can neg you neg 1 card by 40k essentially. So you can kill almost any card in the game as long as it doesn't have a barrier. Pretty cool little interaction there. And then we have the Bulma Bunny Girl. So this is kind of your big defensive package here. So Bulma, when a Earthling other than Bulma is removed, you can play this for free from your hand. And then you get to play out a 4 or less Earthling only. So you can't play this, which kind of sucks, but you can play the Videl. And you can play this. These are probably your 2 best targets. You also can play the Pilaf or the Mai as well. And this also has just blocker inherently. So if one of your cards gets removed, you play Bulma, and then auto, you play one of these. So if you play the Videl, you can then cycle back a super combo to your hand. If you play this, you get a barrier blocker that draws you a card. You also can cycle the Videl. And what people forget is that card says you can't play counterplay skills on cards for the turn if you play this, right? But it doesn't say anything about the auto. So if you play this in the, let's say you play this first, right? Spirit Boost, you neg 2 things by 20. This card gets removed. You Bulma Bunny Girl, you can then play this card back out from the drop if there's one already in there. And I think you can cycle the same one that dies because it does happen in a different window. And then you can Spirit Boost again and then play this and then neg 2 more things by 20k because it doesn't. Yeah, so it says you can't activate the counterplay skill. So we're not actually activating the counterplay skill. We're just playing it off of this. And then the auto is what triggers the neg. So it's a very cool, very broken mechanic. Very strong. I think probably the main reason why we didn't play this deck is because of the yellow matchup. The yellow matchup is very difficult for this deck to win because T-Blow sort of kind of shuts off both of these, which is your big defensive tools. And 21's kind of an odd matchup. So it's kind of why we didn't play this deck. But this is definitely this package keeps you alive against almost every deck in the game other than probably yellow. 2 Kaioken and 2 Broly Crown. These are just more utility, so this gets rid of anything 25k or less, ignoring barrier. Very good into the yellow matchup, which is why we main deck it. You can snipe the Sin promo, you can snipe Trunks Trunkses, you can snipe a few different things. And then Broly, obviously we know what Broly does. Ripping cards out of your opponent's hands is fun. You can also cycle this off of Videl, grabbing this card back. So you can just kind of use like a pseudo hand destruction loop as well. Tons of different utility in this deck. 2 testing, 2 Wolfing. I think that's the only extra cards we actually run in the deck. You need to run as many battle cards as possible for combo power purposes and just for extra defense. There's not a lot of extra cards you want to run in this deck. I don't think even in my side I really had too many. There's a few. Yeah, there's like 2. One card I did actually think about playing, and I didn't actually put in the side because I knew I wasn't going to play this in Tennessee, is Afterimage Technique. Afterimage Technique is very good into the yellow matchup because you generally fill up your drop area pretty quickly, or just decks that want to stall you. It just makes you a 45k leader, and it's sparking, so you can take a life, go down the 4, and then being able to awaken. But Wolfang, snipe something 15k, ignoring barrier. Testing obviously is good. We only run 2 because we're going to probably use it once. Maybe go down to 5, or once to go down to like 1 or 2 life, so that way we can kind of save ourselves. We have the Videl negates, 1 drop and just negates the attack, and then it's a blocker, so it's kind of like a testing the ops. And then we have 2 Oceanus. I do not run Topo in this particular build with all the yellow, and people kind of being a little smarter with that and just using T-Blow. This is one that you need to run. This one's just more impactful. If green becomes a problem, you probably want to run Topo because green generally doesn't have a giant hand, and discarding 2 cards is much harder for them to do than milling 4 cards. So, but 2 Oceanus, you would probably run another one on the side if you were going to actually play it at a big event. But 2 felt okay just because we have so much other little defense. We don't really need to rely on 2 energy for a floodgate. So 2 of our big new cards here. This is probably the only like newer card, is the 8-drop Goku Piccolo. So you play for 2, and you have to you can cycle a Goku or a Piccolo from your drop underneath this card. So we don't play any other Piccolos, but you do play some Goku targets. Preferably, we have this guy, and we have the 1-drop. So both of these cards can be placed underneath the Goku Piccolo. So this gives your leader a 5k boost, which isn't really relevant in Bulma, but other decks it would be. This swings for 25 double strike, and then you can activate main to restand this, to pitch the card underneath it to the drop, and then it restands, you can swing with it again. Or you can keep it on board as a blocker. But this is a 2-drop play. I would probably run 3 or 4 of these if I was going to be playing this deck competitively. I think this is probably the best, your best 2-drop play you can do. You don't really have a lot. You have a lot of 1s, and you need cards that can apply pressure. So between this and Broly, you can do a lot of work. And the last card, Secret Rare, would be Golden Cooler. I think it's probably the better Secret Rare for the deck. How everything's slated currently, ripping your opponent's hand apart and then having so much defense, it's really hard to get out of Golden Cooler. So for Z deck, I think I have my Z deck here. My Z deck, so Z deck is technically would be 2 surmounting. Actually, I don't know where my other surmounting is. I think it's in another deck box probably. But 2 surmounting, 2 rush attack, and normal red good stuff. We run 2 Defender of Life. This is probably the best one to play because this is your way of being able to kill somebody on 2 and not have a really good way of interacting with this guy because it's got barrier. And then 1 of the Videls. Videl's very good. Videl is a blocker. And if you have 1 or more Earthling cards in your Z energy when this card attacks, you can KO a 15k or less, and then this card becomes a 15k for the turn. So it's just another 1-drop attacker that kills something. So you can kill tokens, which is pretty good. So that's kind of why we keep it in here. And then obviously this is probably the best one to play. You probably only going to play 1 to 2 Z battle cards a game, more than likely just one, because a lot of time you don't want to put your Raditz is probably the best card to put in there, but you want to put that in the drop so you can Videl it back to your hand. So getting Z energy is a little difficult in this deck. I've tried different ways to actually make it good. It's just sort of difficult to make Z energy work in this deck. So for the side deck, so we run 1 Nappa. This is another card you can grab off of the Goku. So this is nice. So you actually kind of make it searchable a little bit. But this is where you can burn your opponent. You play it for 4. It's 20k crit, and your opponent burns a life. But you would take out. You can't have any non-red cards showing in any face-up areas. So you have to side out like Oceanus for it. Or if you play Oceanus, you just side this card, or you just charge it or combo it, whatever. We have 2 of the Bardock and 2 of the Vegito. This is another loop play here, so you can actually stall your opponent out from being able to play the game. So you play Vegito. It's got a +1 where it draws a card, plays a 2 or less. This is kind of cool because you can actually play the Goku or the Gohan off of this effect. If you have at least 2 Z energy, you can +1 draw a card and then play this guy and then neg something by 20k. Then you have 2 20k bodies on board for the energy you pay for Vegeta. -5, your opponent has no battle cards on board, you burn them for a life. That actually is pretty relevant. It does come up quite a bit in this deck. And then -2, your opponent cannot play battle cards. If your opponent plays a battle card with a skill during the time that this card activates until the end of your opponent's turn, it goes to the drop instead. So that's floodgates, that's token negates, that's anything they play off of a skill goes directly to the drop. They don't get any effects off of it. And then the Bardock gives a red Unison 3 markers when it's played, and it's got deflect. So the loop, obviously, you play Vegito, you -2. Opponent really can't do anything unless they're playing like Z battle cards. And then you play Bardock next turn, give it 3 markers, and then you -2 again. And then you can use Videl to grab back the Bardock, and you can kind of loop it for a few turns until you can kill them, or until they run out of resources. That's kind of the game plan with the Vegito. Vegito comes in a lot of different matchups, probably more importantly yellow matchups, as well as the 21 matchup. So like 21, I would say 21, expert deck 21, not so much the set 21. Andrew 21, it doesn't really work against that deck too much, but against the expert deck, it works pretty well. We have 1 Sin. So this was a tech that I added in, the Sin Unison. I really like this Unison. It's got a few different effects. So the permanent, this allows all of your red cards to attack your opponent's cards in active mode. Very powerful. So if your opponent's playing like small cantrip cards, like a lot of yellow decks now play Roshi Shen, you can now swing this, and your leader now becomes a threat by being able to swing at them in active mode. Activate main +1, you neg 2 battle cards by 15k. And then -2, you can look at your opponent's hand, rip any battle card out that's 25k power or less. So it's got a little bit of a Broly Crown effect in there as well. This is also searchable off of Goten. It's just another way to awaken properly if you just need another Unison in there. And also it's got really cool art, so it's a good tech. We have 2 Denial of Hope. This is for a lot of different matchups. I would say for 21, which is probably this deck's hardest matchup because it can kind of outgrind you in some senses. You can use this to snipe the 4-drop Z battle card, but just any 20k battle card in general. You can use this against Beerus Z battle cards. Anything that doesn't have barrier that's a 4 or less, this card's going to hit. So it does give you a good amount of flexibility to be able to hit stuff, because it's also not referring to it's nice about this card, it's not referring to energy cost. So if your opponent plays like I don't know, the 5-drop Kaioken, the green one that has a crit, right? It's a 15k. You can use this to snipe it because it doesn't have deflect. So like you can use different things like that just to kind of get your way out of certain situations. Very good card. 2 of the Raditz. More blue hate for Golden Frieza as well. They restand energy on their turn. They have to crit a life. 1 Mechi. Decks that I know play Golden Cooler because that's probably the bane of this deck's existence. You call Golden Cooler. 1 Jiren for blue decks playing Turning the Tide. We have 1 King Piccolo Unison. This doesn't come in a ton. But if you side this in, you side in the Bardox as well, so you can give this card more markers. You can -4, you tap 5 energy, or 4 red energy, and then X amount of energy. And the X is equivalent to any amount of energy you want to tap, and any energy you tap with that effect, you burn them for that many life. So on 7 energy, if you have 7 energy, you can -4 on this guy, you tap 7, you can burn them for 3 life. This is one of your win conditions against other stally decks. It also has a 19k dual attack or crit, so you can swing and pressure a little bit as well. The problem is that this card dies, so you have to tap 4 for this guy, or tap 3 and then have a Bardock to be able to cycle up more effects onto it. It becomes sort of a like a win more card, but I think you still play it just because it is very good. And then 2 King Piccolo, 5 seconds to eradication. So this card comes in against every blue matchup. It's a 20k deflect double strike blocker. When this card swings, your opponent cannot activate the effects of blocker cards. So decks that play like Otherworldly Blitz, things like that, they can't activate them. It's a 20k double strike, and it gives a Unison, a red Unison in your battle area, or in your Unison area 5k. Or I'm sorry, not 5k. It adds a marker to it. So your baby Unison, either maybe even Piccolo, this will give them a +1 on their marker. If they negate an attack, you can take a life to burn them a life as well. So you can also use that to get down to 4 life, or different things like that. It's a little expensive. You don't have a way of searching it, so you kind of have to just make sure you find it. But it's very good against blue. Just being able to just take down markers. Also against yellow, you can use this against the Super Saiyan 2 Unison to kind of remove markers off of it to get it out of the way. Very, very powerful card. I think if I were to play this deck more, I would keep this card in the side deck. So, but that is the Bulma deck. I know I kind of ran through it a little bit. Again, this was kind of another option that we were going to take down to Tennessee, but I wanted to give you guys sort of an idea of what the deck would sort of look like currently in this new format. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.